Music criticism and reviewers are a very popular thing. Criticism can be a helpful jumping off point for discussion as well as a helpful guide into what is and isn't worth your time. I for one consume lots of it, especially good old Anthony Fantano, who I've watched for many years. And I generally like Fantano. I think he has some good, well thought out, well articulated opinions and has opened the door for a lot of music discourse. But I, like many, also take issue with him. The two things I'll talk about in this video are, for one, that music is a very subjective thing influenced by subjective experiences that make any sort of objective personal evaluation of what you think of something, especially when you boil it down to analytical thoughts and a score at the end, very difficult. And two, there's an issue with the lack of longevity in the time it takes for him to review an album. It feels insultingly obvious to frame this surrounding the idea that music is subjective, because we all know that to some degree or another. Despite many people parading their opinions as the obvious truth, no one really actually thinks that. Music publications and reviewers are no different. Fantano has in the description of every review, "Y'all know this is just my opinion, right?" And has also talked about on numerous occasions how his reviews are solely his personal response to a given album. But something interesting to bring up about Fantano is that he listens to a lot of music, like a lot. Not only does he listen to every album he reviews at least 3 times before reviewing it and uploads reviews almost every day, but he also listens to a ton more music outside of that, as evidenced by his Why I Know reviews, which, he doesn't really do anymore, but he used to. As well as a ton of music outside of that and determining what's worth delving into in the first place, plus a lot of old music that he listens to for leisure. Of course, he is the internet's busiest music nerd, and you don't get that title by slacking off. But I still think this is something important to bring up for this video, because it shows that listening to music is literally Fantano's entire life. That sounds obvious, but let's think of the implications of that. It means that Fantano either listens to music he reviews during dedicated music listening time, or he does it while doing life things. Both of these run into problems in my view. This brings me to my main idea here. We are all emotional beings with subjective experiences that music subjectively enhances, or I guess subtracts from. More than music opinions being simply subjective, they're subjective because our experiences are subjective and personal to us. Radiohead is one of my favorite bands largely because they've been there for me my entire life. I have so many memories listening to Radiohead through good and bad that shape my current perspective on them. I can say I like them because their music is well produced, well performed, well written, whatever, but most of the reason I think OK Computer is a near perfect album is because it's near perfect to me. The same thing goes for all music that I like. Everyone has life experiences that the music they listen to supplements in some way, whether or not you have depression and sad music can comfort you, or whether you feel extremely happy and the music you're listening to adds to that feeling. Bringing this back to Fantano, I think there's a few issues with how he must listen to music. Whether or not he has dedicated listening time or listens while doing other things, they both run into the problem of having external thoughts, experiences, feelings, emotions seeping into the listening of the music. Let's say Fantano just has a bad day while listening to an album. Does that not certainly taint his opinion of it? The same thing goes if he's having a great day and he listens to something good or bad. If you're feeling good, then you probably feel less critical generally, so you might cut some slack to an album you might otherwise hate. And something you think is okay might turn into something you really like. We also all have different moods where we're into different things. I don't always want to listen to Ween or Radiohead, even though they're some of my favorites, because it just doesn't match my vibe at that moment. I find it hard to believe that Fantano is exempt from this. So let's say he reviews a rap album during a period where that isn't really matching his mood. Does that not affect his thoughts on it? I just don't believe that Fantano is an emotionless being who views things solely analytically and exempts himself from outside experiences when listening to something. If it's true that he has dedicated time where he just listens to music, I think that takes away a lot of what makes music great, which is that it acts as a filter for your life experiences. Like I said, it supplements or adds to your life experience in some way, which is what shapes your opinion on it. Every time you listen to a song, there are memories attached to it. But what memories are going to be attached to it if you're just blankly listening to it, maybe taking some notes in a room doing nothing else? It feels like, if anything, that will lessen your opinion of whatever you're listening to. But let's say the opposite is true, that most of what he reviews is listened to while doing other things. You then sort of run into the opposite problem, which is that your experiences doing these things seep into your opinion of the music. This is similar to what I talked about before, but is more to do with what he's actively doing while listening to the music instead of extraneous circumstances. If he's writing a video on the Fantano channel about something that really infuriates him, that could go any number of ways in terms of the perception of whatever he's listening to at the time while doing that. If it's something really hardcore and intense, he could really vibe with it. If it's something light and poppy, that would probably not match his vibe at the time. If he's at the grocery store listening to something when someone in front of him pays with a check, which, should infuriate the average person, that memory will forever be a part of his personal experience with whatever piece of music he's listening to. These things get repeated through his numerous listens to an album and cannot be extracted from his opinion on it. Something in my mind that makes Fantano a more reliable source than something like Pitchfork is because he's one person, not a bunch of people who have probably wildly different opinions on something acting as homogenous. But when you take these things into account, it makes you question even his reliability because, like all of us, he's a person with varied experiences. It's my experience that I don't formally develop an opinion on something for a little while after I listen to it, certainly more than 3 listens. It's actually so common for me to not like an album that much the first couple listens that I intentionally give something a ton of tries before moving on. There are some exceptions to this, but an album like Nutri-Milk Hotel's In the Airplane Over the Sea is a great example of this. On first listen, I liked maybe 3 songs on the album. On the 10th listen, I liked maybe 7. And now on the 100th plus listen, I like every song but 1. If I had to review that album when it came out and had a crunch to get it out there, I definitely would have given it a negative review. But now it's one of my favorite albums of all time. I just think that that giving an album a couple days and a few listens is not enough to formally develop an opinion on it. You have to have it enter your life in some way, attach meaningful experiences to it. But when music is your job, I just don't see how it can really do that. Of course, Fantano has made videos on how his opinions on albums have changed over time, which does get at this a bit. But my problem is for the vast majority of albums, the thing that people look for, that score at the end, is based on a very limited experience with that album. I'm sure there were a ton of albums that Fantano has never returned to that if he did, he'd probably have different opinions on, specifically ones with mid to low scores. Now, of course, the time it takes me to warm up to an album might be a very personal thing that Fantano or a lot of other people don't really relate to. I still think, though, that part of what makes a piece of music enjoyable is how it settles into someone's life over time. But when you're constantly reviewing music, I don't see how that can ever happen in anything close to the short term. And it certainly doesn't happen in enough time for the review. So what do we make of all this? Should we trust sites like Metacritic more than people like Fantano? I guess that's a possible conclusion in terms of determining what is and isn't worth listening to. But I also think, like I said in the beginning, that people like Fantano are a gateway into further music discussion, which I think is a good thing. I also think it's a double-edged sword, but generally a good thing to think critically about why you do or don't like something. I don't think any of this makes him pointless. I'm certainly not going to stop watching him just because I made this video. But I do think it's worth taking a nuanced view surrounding him and all music criticism. Let me know what you think of this in the comments. Anyways, that's it.